Hello there. So today we're reducing assets and liabilities to very simple terms that everybody can understand. Put simply, an asset is anything that puts money in your pocket. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. Now, these are not the strict definitions. What my channel is committed to doing is ensuring that the everyday man out there understands in the simplest of terms what some of these highfalutin language is all about. So when you think about an asset, think about something you have acquired or that you have that actually puts money inside your pocket, and a liability is anything you have or you have acquired that takes money out of your pocket. This is the same whether we're talking about your personal life or your business. We frequently use the word liability to refer to something that is a problem. For instance, we can say maybe you have a child that is very heady and naughty, or say, oh, this one is a liability. But in the technical sense of the term, it is something that takes away from you, while an asset is something that adds something of value to you. And we're talking about money specifically. This video is going to be short. Let me go straight to the point by giving you very practical examples that you can use to know exactly what I'm referring to. So let's say, for instance, now, a house, property. Most Nigerians, I think, fantasize about getting to a point in their lives when they do not have to pay the landlord, especially for those of us who live in cities like Abuja, where you essentially work for your landlord because the rents are through the roof, especially if you want to live within the city center, AMAC. If you want to live in the municipality, we all know what rents are like. Owning property, having your own house is a good thing. It gives you a sense of self-esteem. You don't feel like you owe anybody anything. You don't feel like anybody could come and kick you out at a whim. You run it according to your own heart's desires. You do what you want and all of that. So it gives you a certain level of independence. But in the strict sense of the word, especially if you're planning to live in it, if it's residential, it is not an asset. In fact, it is a liability, even if it is not mortgaged. Now, a mortgage is a loan you take to buy a property, and then you start paying money back in bits to the bank. So even if you bought your house cash down, even in such circumstances, the house that you are living in is not an asset. It's a good thing to have, but it is not an asset, and let me explain why. Maintenance. If you are the kind of person who is responsible enough to want your house to remain in good shape, this means that you're going to repaint it from time to time. There will always be plumbing issues. Believe me, I know. There will always be electrical issues. These things all take money out of your pocket. If you're the kind of person who has gone the extra mile to invest in things like solar panels and so on and so forth, please don't get me started. It's expensive. The amount you will spend maintaining your house and keeping it in good form from 1 month to the next, after 12 months, if you calculate that money, you'll find that you're spending way more than you would have paid if you were a tenant paying rent. So if you look at it from that perspective, a house you live in cannot be described as an asset because it doesn't put money in your pocket. It takes money out of your pocket. Now, even if you have the kind of arrangement where Let's say it's a 3-bedroom flat and you've decided to sublet one room. It's still not an asset. You could live in that house for the next 15 years and never make, you will not make back the 30 million you spent buying it. That same house, that same property, however, becomes an asset if your plan is to buy it, maybe live in it for a couple of years, then upgrade it and sell. Now, depending on the location, the environment, the neighborhood, and things like that, within a couple of years, the property could have appreciated by 200 or 300%. In that instance, it is an asset. Because let's assume you bought it at 30 million naira, and in 2-3 years' time, you're selling it off at 38 million naira. You've made 8 million naira profit. So it depends on what you're using the house for. If you're going to live in it indefinitely, this is the family home and all of that, it is not an asset. It is a good thing to have, but it is not an asset. So that is one very cogent example of how a property may or may not be an asset. It depends on what you're using it for. Now, still talking about property as a liability instead of an asset. Somebody might say, okay, what if you put it up for rent? As somebody who has had some of the most unfortunate experiences you could have renting out property, I would say it still does not make that property an asset. You could have the most beautifully drawn out contract for how you expect your property to be handled, maintenance and all of this, and you might be unlucky enough to have a tenant who really doesn't care because he didn't build it. He or she didn't build it. So a door handle snaps off and they leave it like that. The borehole, the pumping machine packs up, they leave it like that. The electrical wiring has a problem, they leave it like that because their plan is to move out soon anyway. And then you find that whatever it was they were paying you as rent, you try to put it back into repairing all these things, and it's not enough. You have to add more to it. So for me, as long as you're not buying a house to refurbish and sell when the time is right, timing is very important. You should buy during an economic slump when everybody wants to sell. If you have money, buy, refurbish, or wait when things are better and people have some money in their pocket. You refurbish and you sell. That is an asset. Based on the instance I've given, I'm sure you now know by now that even if you buy a car brand spanking new, tier leather as we call it in Nigeria, from the moment you drive it out of the wherever it was you bought it, that's it. It depreciates immediately. The minute it gains the tiniest mileage, the minute it shows any indication that it's been driven, shikena, the car has depreciated. So let's say you take 15 million, go and buy a brand new Toyota, whatever. You will never sell that car for 15 million. That is to even get the initial 15 million naira back. You'll never sell it at 15. It will be by the grace of the living God that you'll be able to sell that car in 2 years' time for, say, 6 or 7 million. And this would be if you have really taken the time to maintain it, you're particular about oil change, you make sure the suspension, the engine, everything is in good form, you don't play with the vehicle, there are no scratches on it, no bumps. Anytime things like that happen, you take care of it immediately and everything, it's in the best possible shape. You don't drive it to where the roads are bad and all of that. Believe me, in 1 or 2 years, if you try to sell that car, you're going to sell it at half price. So it is not an asset. It's a good thing to have. It makes your life easier, it makes moving around more convenient. you arrive wherever you're going with dignity. Again, it gives you independence. You don't have to make calls and wait for any taxis to show up. It gives you a sense of, I don't arrive, and all of that. Yeah. So is it good to have a car? Yes. Is it an asset? No. And it is even less of an asset if you're going to put it to use for things like ride sharing, the Bolt, Uber kind of business. Because the wear and tear on the vehicle, the vehicle will deteriorate much faster than if you're using it just for personal purposes. So, except you're buying a vintage car, one of those that came out in 1908, and you've managed to refurbish it to a point where it can still be used today. Now, that is an antique. That is vintage. It's one of a kind. You could make a whole lot of money from that. It is an asset. But that is something that doesn't happen every day. We're talking of the typical person that maybe even takes a car loan. You go and buy a car. It is not an asset. So I think we now have a very layman's understanding of what is an asset and what is not an asset, no matter how good it looks. So if it is not an asset, that is, it is taking money out of your pocket, then it is definitely a liability. Other examples of liabilities are loans, mortgages. What then would we classify as assets? Stocks. I've already done a video on stocks, shares, things like that. Owning a small part of a company where you get paid dividends, and then whenever you're tired, you sell it off and you still get money. Literally without breaking a sweat. That is an asset. It's an asset. Having money, well, in Nigeria, you know what it is, our currency keeps depreciating and all of that. So that's where I'm going to stop this video. I hope that I've been able to give you a layman's understanding of these basic terms, because if you're going to be financially literate, these are some of the key things that you need to know. You need to know about assets, liabilities, stocks, bonds, and all of these things, and you need to understand about them in the most basic way possible. I hope the video has been useful to you. If you found this video interesting, educating, tune in again next Thursday, 7 p.m. We have fresh videos coming up every 7 p.m. Remember also to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Don't forget also that this is not all we do. We're not just YouTubers. We provide video production and editing services, particularly in Abuja, and we do a pretty good job. See you again next week.